I'm Liz Larson.
And I'm Bill McKenna.
And together, we created the Cogno Movement System. And we'd like to welcome you to the New Life Perspectives radio show,
where we're going to be sharing with you tools, tips, and ideas that are going to change your life.
Hello, hello in UK Health Radio Land. I am Liz Larson with the New Life Perspectives radio show, and I'm here today with my co-host and partner in crime,
Bill McKenna.
Hey, Bill McKenna, how you doing today?
Doing great. I'm so happy that we have our friend and esteemed associate, Jackie Woodside, with us today. Jackie really probably needs no introduction, but we're going to make one anyway. She is a best-selling author, USA Today best-selling author. She has written many books. She has produced many human development programs on relationships, money, and developed coaches that are now all over the world. She has changed so many lives. Welcome, Jackie.
Thank you so much, Liz and Bill. I love spending time with you guys. And it's really nice for me to have the opportunity to maybe speak to your audience, get to know your people a little bit, and of course, always spend some time with you.
Would you tell us a little bit, Jackie, about that best-selling book and a little bit about yourself, a little bit more, so the audience has an idea about what you do? What's your flavor?
Yeah, sure. I would love that. So fundamentally, I'm a consciousness teacher, but because nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, oh, I just wish I could go raise my consciousness. I've needed to focus that sense of teaching people to raise consciousness, manage their inner world of belief, emotion, attitude, and thought. Because people want to focus on their externals, but I really know that as within, so without. But because most people don't wake up thinking, I just wish I could change my consciousness, I've taken my teaching and I've created it on, how do you manage time, or how do you manage yourself around time? How do you deal with the stress of money? How do you deal with life itself? So, my courses and my teachings and my coaching really centers around, kind of time, money, relationships, and life, and how to experience fulfillment, satisfaction, peace of mind. Like, that's a big one, right? People are so freaking stressed out these days about money and the economy and politics and climate change. These are some strange and interesting times that we're living in. So my mission, my goal, is to really help people recognize that regardless of your exteriors and your external circumstances, you can cause and create your experience no matter what your external circumstances are. So I coach, I do professional development training, I lead workshops and retreats. I'm off to the Seychelles Islands in about 6 weeks to lead a retreat in East Africa for some CEOs. So my work is very broad. I do leadership development training at a university. And my background is as a clinical social worker. So I've got a very deep and broad background in this space of human growth and development.
So Jackie, I asked you before we came on, just in our prep, like, people could walk away with one thing. What is the core? What do you want them to know? And what you said I thought was very interesting. And it actually can be kind of controversial as well. You said that you want people to know that they are the cause of their life and not the effect of their life. What does that mean to you?
Yeah. So my stance is that you're at cause of your life, not at the effect of what's happening around and to you. And that is a big frog to swallow, right? I think overall, the consciousness that most people are living in today is the consciousness of kind of life is happening to me. The economy is happening to me. I didn't choose this president. I didn't choose this law or this whatever, so it's being done to me. And I like to help people recognize that experience of life, it's happening to me, is a state of consciousness. It's a way of perceiving life. And that when you recognize, no matter how difficult your circumstances are, how challenged you might be in the moment, how stressed you might feel about money or your marriage, that fundamentally what you are saying is that what I want people to understand is that regardless of how difficult your circumstances are, you still get to say how you're going to experience yourself in those circumstances. So let me give you a couple of examples about that. There's a couple authors that have just profoundly impacted my life, and one of them will be familiar to most of your listeners and one will not. So one of them is Viktor Frankel, who wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. He was a psychiatrist, and he was in the concentration camps during the Holocaust experience. And he was one of the few people that survived. He lived and was released after the war from the concentration camps and went on to write his approach to psychotherapy, which was called Logotherapy. And his perspective is that what had him and helped others survive the concentration camps was when they had some meaning and purpose to direct their life toward. I've got to get home. I've got to survive this to get home and see my spouse. I've got to survive this because my kids need me. So the people that were able to attach deeply to a sense of meaning and purpose survived. And people who were just in the moment of suffering, and this is being done to me, obviously, many of those perished. So that's one of the people who was in extraordinary circumstances and yet was able to find this place within himself that could transcend it. The other author, also an author during the Holocaust, not one that made the notoriety of Viktor Frankel, largely perhaps because she was a woman. Her name is Etty, E-T-T-Y, Hillesum, and she wrote a few books, but her diaries were published posthumously because she perished during the Holocaust. And Etty's writings she's hailed as a modern day mystic. She was actually one of the Jewish people that was able to go in and out of the concentration camps because of the role that she was playing during that time in the government. So there were times that she would be in the concentration camps as a prisoner because she was Jewish. There were other times that she was in the community helping, if you will, to process the Jews to be sent to concentration camps. And in her diary, she writes about the fact that she longed to go back into the gulags, to go back into the prison camps, so that she could help people transcend the experience of the suffering that they were engaged in. And she said in one of her writings that she wanted to be there to look the prisoners, to look the guards and the wardens in the eye, because she wanted to see the shed of humanity and find that place of love where they could connect. And she wrote, I don't want to send any hate toward them, even though in my heart of hearts, I hate them. I hate what they're doing. I won't send an ounce of hate, because any one of us that adds more hate to the world just adds to the inhospitability of life itself. And I thought, reading those two authors, and I've studied them quite extensively, and years of being a psychotherapist as well, where I've done my 10,000 hours, if you will, the lead to mastery. I've done my 10,000 hours and then some of listening to human being after human being tell their story about their suffering in life. So the combination of that kind of intense depth reading and study and 10,000 hours plus of listening to human beings tell their story, what it's come down to for me is that your experience of life is less about what's happening to you than it is about what's happening inside of you. So just to add a personal experience of this, so a lot of my background and my history, which led me into the field of psychology, was I had quite a significant trauma history in my early life. My father died unexpectedly, his brother, his father, all died in car accidents separately in 9 months from one another when I was a child. It was traumatic for my family. I had experiences of family alcoholism and sexual abuse and physical abuse and violence. And so I had a very, very difficult upbringing. I was diagnosed with chronic depression, with adult attention deficit disorder, and a myriad of other psychiatric conditions over the years of my life. And it was really through my own experience of healing and recovery that I came to understand that my life isn't about what's happening to me. It's about the resilience and the story that I get to create about my life. And honestly, I've gotten very, very good at that. I'm able to help myself and help hundreds and thousands of other people develop that sense of self-empowerment. And still, over the last couple of years, my son went through a pretty serious psychiatric crisis. And despite the fact that I've lived this for years, I've taught it for years, my own experience while he was rageful and violent in my face and my own trauma history kind of getting triggered, I had to work really, really hard to not go to that victim place and say, this is happening to me. How can I be peaceful when I've got a child who's not well? How can I be calm when I don't feel safe in my own home? So I understand from my own personal experience that what I'm saying, your life's about how you feel inside. It's all good if you create it good on the. No, that can be bullshit if you don't really do the work. If you don't really dive into what energy is and what consciousness is and how you can actively co-create your experience with what's happening around you and what's happening within you.
So I want to go back just for a second to what you're talking about, the experience of the Holocaust. That is one of those experiences I think anyone in the world that understands and knows about that could point to say, well, what choice did those people have in that moment? And yet you bring an amazing point. Bill and I agree with you 1000% about personal power and about that you can create the cause. I mean, one of our books is called Suffering is Optional, right? But in that case, it would almost seem ridiculous if you don't understand this principle. People that were in those camps could have been victims. They could have just allowed themselves to go along and do whatever's happening. Or maybe they served others in the camp by treating their wounds. Maybe they continued to educate children. Maybe they took on someone else's child after they were gone. Maybe they ministered in a spiritual way. Even though those people may not have survived afterward, their experience was probably very, very different than someone who was just in fear, just in pain. That ability to know that you still have some power to control your own life really changes everything.
Yeah.
Even your story about your own life. When you're in a situation where suffering could be the underlying feeling, what can you do to change that? How do you shift out of the victim state?
Yeah.
With Bill and I, we change the nervous system. We change the emotional artifacts that are running on your power lines. What would you have a person do if they find themselves in a place where they really do feel like a victim with no choice?
Mm-hmm.
How did they begin to switch out of that in what you teach?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. It's a great question, Liz. I want to go back to something you said. You said when a person feels like they have no power, no control over their life, then I would say, honestly, I don't know that we have any power and control over our lives. So that's a provocative thing to say as well. I believe in the power of intention. I believe that we're always creating an energetic vortex according to our level of consciousness and how we choose to interact. So I believe that there are ways that we impact life. But what I believe 110% is that we have control, or we can develop power and control and clarity over our experience of life. So I make a very clear distinction between, I create I create my life. Look, I've had really good friends, high consciousness, loving, beautiful, amazing people die horrible deaths from cancer. Did they make that cancer happen? Hell no. I don't believe that they did. But what I help them do, 3-4 of my students who died of just horrible deaths with cancer, what I help them do is to die with intention. So yeah, we did all of that work on, seeing themselves whole and seeing themselves, healed and changing their circumstances. And sometimes you don't change the outer circumstances. So what then do you do? When you can't change the outer circumstances because of poverty or because of illness or, because of Holocaust, political conditions. Right now the abortion laws in Texas, used to be black and white people weren't allowed to marry, gay people weren't allowed to marry. So there are always outer conditions that impinge upon us. So I don't believe that you, quote, control your life. I do believe, however, that you can learn to control how you experience and respond to life. So and I think that's an important distinction, quite honestly. So how do I teach and train people to do that? I think the philosophy that I bring to it is it's a combination, but my foundational philosophy is to make your life your whole spiritual practice. So, I'm a spiritual teacher and leader and consultants and leadership teacher. So people will always ask me, Jackie, what are your practices? They'll ask, what's your morning routine? Or they'll ask, what are your favorites? What are your go-to spiritual practices? I'm asked those kinds of questions a lot. And I'm happy to answer them, but my biggest answer is my spiritual practice is my life lived in high vibration with self-awareness and high consciousness all the time, everywhere. So I have a talk that I give called Make Your Life Your Living Prayer. So the foundation of what I teach is to help people understand that self-awareness doesn't just mean, oh, I'm aware that I'm pissed off at you right now. I'm aware that I'm afraid. But that's just one level of awareness. So all of the changes that people need to make in elevating their consciousness begin with being able to observe moment to moment to moment. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? And I can't tell you, I've been doing this for years. I'm leading a Money Vibe mastermind group. And the people that are drawn to my work are very experienced, personal development, professional development, growth-oriented people. And I'd start talking about their vibe, their money vibe, their consciousness about money, thoughts, emotions, attitudes about money. And people are like, yeah. And then I do individual appointments with them where I have them tell me, what do you most often think about money? What do you most often say about money? Or I'll just listen to them as they're making a decision about, should I leave this job, but what if? And the majority of what I hear over and over and over, 10,000 hours worth, is people live in some kind of fear, uncertainty, anxiety, resignation, maybe not as often apathy. I hear that some, but not as often with people that are drawn to my work. And when when that's the foundation of the energetic vortex that you're creating, fear, worry, stress, overwhelm, uncertainty, just kind of this anxious approach to what's happening around me and in life, and then the need to control it, that's the place to go to work. And most people don't recognize that self-awareness really means moment to moment, listening to what's going on in your head and what's coming out of your mouth. I have some of my early training where I have people begin is just paying attention to what you say in email, because it's a little slower than what comes out of your mouth. Use the delete key a lot, complaining about things, projecting into the future. So that's the first place that I have people begin. So I know every coach that you've probably ever interviewed, every spiritual teacher you've ever interviewed says awareness. It all begins with awareness. Yes, it does. And I just want to assert that in my experience, most people don't fully appreciate what that means. They're like, oh yeah, I'm really aware. I'm aware that I'm angry at you. Well, okay, but what are you saying to yourself? How are you justifying your anger? What is it about me that is allowing myself to gravitate toward anger about what you said or did? What is that about me? See, that's a whole new level of self-awareness. Not you did that and I'm pissed off. I can see that. I can see that I'm pissed off. Well, that's very great. So can a 6-year-old. What is it about me? What do I believe about you? What do I believe about myself? Then, you get into that, you're getting into some of the fundamental, kind of the foundation of the energetic vortex that you're creating through this consciousness. And my definition of consciousness is the vibratory pattern that gets created by your beliefs, emotions, attitudes, and thoughts. And if you pay attention closely, that's an acronym: beliefs, emotions, attitudes, and thoughts, BEAT. And your beliefs, emotions, attitudes, and thoughts create how you behave, how you act, the outcome, your actions. That creates the vibratory pattern of your life. That determines where you connect with the matrix that life is, the energetic matrix that life is, what you bring into your life, what you repel from your life. So the beginning of my work is a much deeper dive into awareness than a lot of people talk about. All of my courses, all of my coaching begins with the first phase I call awareness and assessment. So when people, and then I have all kinds of assessment tools too, to look at what is your relationship with time and money. And when people just look like in black and white, writing it down on an assessment inventory, even though I think I have this really great relationship with time or money or whatever, it's like, here it is in black and white. And it's a little like, oh shit moment. Like, oh, that's why I'm having this experience. Then we can get to work on what I call the design phase of shifting your experience through shifting the vibratory pattern. And I've, all kinds of work that I do with people on creating that design, creating that shift. I mean, I can talk about some of them if you want, but I'll stop there and let you dive in.
Would you say that a person who is really in the thick of it, life spiraling out of control in one area or another, marriage, work, money, body, all of those things, would you say that the recognition of knowing that they have a choice, would that be something that a person could do? I mean, the very tiniest beginning thing, or is it something else?
Yeah, honestly, I think it depends on the level of consciousness that the person is living in at the moment. So if you say to someone who's living, and again, I don't like this sounds judgmental. It's not, it's simply observatory. So if a person is living in, quote, a low vibe, low level of consciousness, where they're kind of chronically, resigned and stressed and overwhelmed and angry and feeling at effect in life, feeling like life is happening to me and I don't have any say in this. If that's the energetic vortex, their worldview and level of perception is life is happening to me. And you say, oh, no, you have a choice. You don't have to feel that way. They're just going to get pissed off and think like, well, who are you? Look at you. Look at your education. Look at how much money you make. Look at your marriage. And they'll just be pissed off. They won't even be able to hear it. So it depends. So with a person at that level of consciousness who's experiencing life as if they are the victim, the first place, the only place to go to work and connect is through empathy and compassion. I really get that sucks. You so don't deserve to have that experience. So and honestly, I don't generally attract that kind of person into my practice. It's not my vibe. It certainly was. And I think that's one of the reasons I shifted from psychotherapy to full-time coaching and speaking and training, because I didn't resonate that, like I couldn't stay in that any longer. I physically, viscerally felt, because people who are drawn to psychotherapy often come in because they have this problem with this situation and it's very external and they're talking about what's been done to them, what's happening to them, which is fine. There's a place to begin. But as I grew in consciousness through my own inner work and spiritual journey, those conversations just didn't resonate with me any longer. So because my vibe didn't resonate with that, I had to go away from it, or my practice probably would have shriveled up and died because it just wasn't an energetic match any longer. So I made this full-time shift into this field. So at that level of consciousness, right, if you're dealing with someone who's just struggling and it's all happening to me, the only appropriate response is empathy and compassion until they feel seen and heard. And you can almost feel when that opening, gets present, that you can say, well, maybe, what if, like, do you think maybe there's something you could do? But if you say that too soon, it'll just piss it off.
Well, I was kind of thinking they could say it to themselves even. Go ahead, Bill.
Do you think, I heard from this one master teacher that I had who said, everything has the exact meaning that I give it.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do you think somebody might be able to hear that? at their level of consciousness or their
Yeah.
understanding?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And I absolutely believe that there is no inherent meaning in anything. And I that's a lot of the work I do with my coaching clients is they'll say, they'll spew off this whole series of this and then this and then it means that. And I respond with, that's a belief. And when they hear that from me, it gives them pause, like, oh, because they're saying it like in coaching, we say it is reality. They're saying it like a fact. There is reality. It is this way versus that's how I'm perceiving it. This is my leadership work. I do a whole section on teaching the difference between fact and perception. A training called Dealing with Difficult People, another one, emotional self-regulation in the workplace. And all the center of all of those trainings is helping people recognize what you think is not the truth. Your perceptions are not facts. Your worldview is not reality. It is your worldview. It is your perception, but it is a belief. It's not a fact. So I very much agree with that people are at any moment get to assign the meaning to what's happening. So I think to say that to somebody who's living in my model, 4 levels of consciousness, one is survival, the second one is stress. So if you're living in survival or stress consciousness, in that to me mindset, life is happening to me at level 1, survival, it's to me and it's just too hard, so screw it. I don't want to engage. Close the door, resignation, apathy, somebody else has to take care of this. At level 2, stress consciousness, it's life is hard and I got to get there. I got to do it. I got to work harder. I got to dig in. This is where most of mainstream America is living, kind of between these two, but closer toward the, work hard, gut it out, make it happen mentality. So when you're at these lower levels, 1 and 2 of consciousness, I would probably not choose to say the life has the meaning or that circumstance has the meaning that you're giving it, unless I had a really trusting rapport with that person. Because at that level of consciousness, they just can't hear it. They will feel blamed, particularly level 1, survival consciousness, victim consciousness. They will feel blamed because that's their worldview.
Right. Hard to get out of that.
Yeah, it's hard to get out of that. And the next level of consciousness, they'll be like, oh, and then they'll go take the course on how to develop better meaning, and they have to work hard. So it's just not helpful, particularly at these lower levels of consciousness. Now, when somebody is kind of, done enough work on themselves, and this is generally the clients that I attract into my practice, they at least have the intellectual understanding that the meaning that they're giving it is creating their experience of it. They at least have the intellectual understanding of it, even if they can't translate that into their emotional experience.
Right.
So that would be the work that I would do with people, is helping them translate that into their lived experience. And I do that through lots and lots of practices in lots of ways, but things like using analogies. Like, what things do you believe that support you and empower you? And then you kind of create your life that way. And people can look, like maybe they've got a good health practice, or they have a decent budget, or they've created a good career. They can look in other places. So let's say their marriage is a mess, right? But their career is actually singing along quite nicely. If that's the case, then I have them look at what if they come to believe in their career? And then how can you translate that to what you're going through in your marriage experience? Yeah, but it's all about him.
So tell us about this book, your latest book.
Okay, sure. So my latest book was the one that became the USA Today bestseller. It's an anthology with a bunch of other incredible entrepreneurs, and it is called Your Younger Self Letters. And what it is a book of chapters of entrepreneurs writing a letter to their younger self with the lessons that they've learned through their life's journey to help people raise the vibe and recognize all of the hard-won, hard-earned life lessons of a myriad of different entrepreneurs. So my chapter was about the notion that there is no is reality. You are I have a whole couple paragraphs on don't believe everything you think. Part of the problem that disempowers people is we have the majority of our thoughts are negative kind of anxious, self-deprecating, working hard thoughts. And when you believe, because we're, the human condition, the brain is not designed for you to thrive, it's designed for you to survive. So your brain is constantly hypervigilant on the lookout for what could possibly go wrong. Am I measuring up? Am I good enough? And what are they going to think of me? And when that's the case, your mind spirals into these kind of negative, cautionary, preconceived notions of what life might serve you that's not going to feel good or not going to be helpful for you. So a big part of that book and my chapter of it is be careful not to believe everything you think. Because what you think isn't the truth. It's just what you think. So helping people, this book, all of the chapters, help people really distance from the experience you're having and then what you make it mean. I have been very fortunate even this last couple of years when I had such difficulty with my son, because I believe this and teach this at such a deep level, even when it was awful, even when I was afraid, even when my son was unsafe, I could observe myself having this experience. I could talk myself off that cliff of being triggered from my own childhood trauma. So it wasn't like I was having a walk in the park and this is great. No, I could catch myself projecting into the future, like, oh my God, I'm going to have to care for him forever. He's not going to be okay. I'm going to have a 30-year-old living in my basement playing video games, all of these projections. And then I could catch myself. And I remind myself, don't believe everything you think. Your brain is operating for your survival and projecting a negative future so that you're prepared for it. You don't have to go there. And I could create then a different scenario of my son being well, of us laughing together, helping myself come into my body through my breath, through yoga, through the experience of actually being in this now moment. So that's my most recent book. It's called Younger Self Letters. And the one before that is on money vibe. And it's all about your vibratory pattern in relation to money and how you've created that vibratory pattern and how to elevate it to create greater flow in life. With that book, I have an extraordinary, my favorite thing I've ever created, I think, in my business called the 30-Day Money Vibe Challenge, where people set an intention and then go through a series of practices each and every day to help raise the vibe and create that energetic vortex of reception. So the 30-Day Money Vibe Challenge it's an actual visceral experience that people can have, bringing more money into their life through shifting their beliefs, emotions, attitudes, and thoughts.
That's amazing. That's such a huge topic, not just now, but for all time. As long as there's been money, it's been something that runs in the nervous system as fear, as pain, as lack, as loss. So the ability to change that incrementally or all at once or however it works is a foundational thing. I think people's relationships are better when their money is better, right? Their life is better when their money is better. Their work life is better. It just seems to translate. So it's such an amazing big topic. I want to make sure that we have time because every week, as the audience, we offer something that actually will change your life today that you can take with you and use. So I want to make sure we have time for that. So let's set that up. You said it's called The Spiritual Power of Imagination. So first of all, tell us how that ties in with all the things we were just talking about, and then take it away and lead us through, if you will.
Great. So here's how it ties into what we were talking about. So we've talked a lot about how kind of what your mind does, what your brain does, creating these neurological firings all by itself that's geared for your survival, not for you to thrive. So over time, with practice, and cognitive movement, and working with coaches, and your own self-development work, you can, the phrase I use your mind to train your brain to actually operate for your higher good, rather than for this constant fear and whatnot. So using your mind to train your brain, you can learn to direct your mind for specific purposes and focus your mind in particular ways. That's what the 30-Day Money Vibe Challenge does. It trains you to direct your mind toward the inflow of money for 30 days. It's super, super fun thing to do. So with this, the spiritual power of imagination, and by the way, this isn't something I made up. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of the Unity Movement, Neville Goddard, who is a mystical teacher, contemporary, and other, I don't know where it was initially founded from, but there are many early spiritual teachers that teach on the spiritual power of imagination. My entree to it was through Charles Fillmore and Neville Goddard. So the spiritual power of imagination is putting yourself, is using your mind in a directed and particular way. So rather than just your mind doing yummy, 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 what your mind does, it is using your mind in a particular way. So if there's something that you want to bring into your life, or something that you want to find, or something that you want to create, it's a way of being able to focus with relaxed attention on that thing, feeling the feelings that you will feel after its completion, and doing that repeatedly over time, say, 5 minutes a day for however long that you do it, and letting go of the outcome of it. So one of the ways that I always use this, I used it just the other day, to find things that I've lost. So we had an experience on my family farm about a year ago where my cousin lost his car keys on a 100-acre farm. And of course, everybody is tense and they're upset and blaming everybody else. And I just was like, guys, look, this might sound a little funky, might sound a little weird, but if we could all just take a breath, relax. How's it going to feel when we find his keys? How are we all going to, like, wow, this would be great. And I was like, okay, so that's the energy you want to create. Focus on how are you going to feel? What are we going to do? So it's seeing that celebration. And within 25 minutes, it was dusk at that time. I had my phone trying to use that as a flashlight. And my son saw the reflection of the keys in the tall grass in the middle of a field on a 100-acre farm. And we found the keys. That's just one simple example. People use it for parking spots. I personally, I like choice. So I always say 2 spots, and it does not matter. I can be in the middle of Washington, DC, Boston. I'll say to myself, 2 spots, 2 spots, 2 spots. And I say it before I go. And I feel really relaxed and energized by that, knowing I'm creating this perfect condition. I promise you, if you're driving around with me, 2 spots will show up. I do it in the 30-day Money Vibe Challenge. The last time I did that, I was really fortunate to have over $106,000 come in 30 days when I'd set the intention for 50 and started with like, I don't know. Am I going to have, and within a few weeks, just releasing that tension, because that's the constrictive energy, opening up with gratitude to how fun it will be to create this. So it's using your mind to condition your emotions and projecting that into the future. How am I going to feel when this is complete? Not how am I is it going to happen? Is it going to work for me? None of that low vibe, constrictive energy. Expansive, light, I say the 4E formula, the energy of enthusiasm, excitement, and expectancy is the vortex you want to create.
Awesome. So is that what people do? Is the step one is they decide what they want?
Step one is decide what you want. That is within your realm of believability. So if you want to be on the Oprah show and you've never been on a podcast before, you might want to scale that into your realm of believability. Now, maybe you do believe it. I don't know. If you want to bring in $1 million this month, but you've never made $1 million in a year, might not be in your realm of believability. And people are like, well, how do I know? And all I can say is you just know. Get quiet and feel it in your body. Does it resonate with your energy field? So yes, you get clear on what it is that you want to bring into your field, or something that you want to find something that you've lost, or you want to create that parking spot, whatever. It can be little things or big things. I've done this with multiple people creating their life partner. So getting clear on what it is that you want, holding the celebration of that in your mind, just 5 minutes a day, get into a second step, relaxed state, a couple deep breaths, relax, slow down your thoughts. Third step, bring the feeling nature to mind and see in your mind's eye, what are you going to do? Are you going to high five? You can do a little happy dance. You're going to call somebody up on the phone. What are you going to do when you celebrate that experience? And then the last step is just be grateful. Thank you that this is so. It's so fun.
Yeah,
I taught it to my son.
Does he use it?
He'll tell me to use it.
I'll tell you to use it.
Yeah.
I know my kids do that to me. Mom, you need to do yourself, right?
Yeah.
I love that. It's such a beautiful, it sounds simple, but there can be some challenges. One of them is, like you said, Abraham Hicks says this so beautiful, Esther. Maybe you can't get there from here, right? So like you said, well, can you really believe that you can be on Oprah? So what Bill and I love to do is to try out the muscle, to work this muscle. And what's the next thing? What's just the very next thing you want in your life, the next small thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if a person uses it on that, then they start to see, oh, this thing works. And then I like to say, what's the next shiny thing? Right? Ooh, that looks pretty over there. Maybe I'll, lean my scooter that direction. So you really can use these tools to build up that muscle. Try it out. See if it works. A parking spot's a perfect example, right? Because if you get it or don't, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
But if you get it, it sure will feel good.
Or no line at the grocery store. You can start with really simple things that just make your life a little easier. And exactly as you said, as you build confidence, build the muscle, it raises your energy. It expands your energy so that when you go for, kind of the bigger things, you've already developed the confidence and the belief in your capacity to be the creative agent of your life.
Yeah. And the idea of celebrating after, we use something where you look down the timeline, even 1 week and 2 months and a year. What does it really look like when that thing happened? What happens in your life? Because nothing happens in a vacuum, right? If you get that parking spot and it saves you 10 minutes, maybe you run into the love of your life at the line in the grocery store, right?
That's what I used to tell my clients. I'd like, see you bumping into him or her in the produce aisle of the grocery store. I have such great stories about clients of mine finding the love of their life through this work. It's just extraordinary.
It is.
And also saving marriages.
Yeah.
So I've had people use these same techniques to change just this toxic energy in their marriages as well.
Well, when you realize you can change one thing, like the line in the grocery store or the parking spot, and now you're in a state of, oh my God, I just changed the parking spot or the line. Now what else is possible? It really is so expansive. And that one little thing, I want to encourage all of our audience members to try this on one little thing, because that one little thing could lead to something much, much greater just in that opening of consciousness. So Bill, would you weigh in on this before we got to go? We just have a couple of minutes left. I can't believe it's flown by so fast with Jackie.
Oh, thank you. It's been really fun.
I couldn't be in more agreement with you. What I love is Jackie it's not one parking space, it's two.
Yeah,
Create bigger, create grander, and set your intention clearly and relaxing the body and letting go. And with that, to watch your success, relax and watch your success and build on it. Once we have that first success of that 1 or 2 parking spaces, then, you'll get the confidence to start getting bigger. As you say, if you're thinking the Oprah show or $1 million or the lottery or something like that, maybe you don't have the confidence quite yet for that. So just starting that in the small things, the practical things of life that would make your life better, right?
Yeah.
That I love that you're starting people off, walk, crawl, crawl, walk, run,
Right. And I like using spiritual principles for practical purposes. This is a practical approach to heightened spiritual living. That's really the heart and core of my work.
Right.
Being your God self on earth. Let's bring God to this plane by you and I all fulfilling our potential.
Well done. Well done.
Thanks, dude. It's always good to hang with you.
Yeah, likewise.
So Jackie, before we have to go, and we do have to go, we're going to run over on the network again. Please tell everyone how they can get in touch with you. Where can they reach you and how can they work with you?
Sure.
Also, very quickly, how they can register for the summit.
Yeah, great. So the Conscious Living Summit that features Bill McKenna, wonderful, and the Money Vibe Summit, actually, both of those are on my website. JackieWoodside.com is my website. You can email me through there. You can register for both summits, I think under events or programs, I'm not sure, but you'll see both of those summits there. Now, the Money Vibe Summit is complete, but you can get the replay to it, and the Conscious Living Summit is happening right now as we speak in September 2021. So JackieWoodside.com, and if you want to do the Money Vibe Challenge, just Google search 30-day Money Vibe Challenge, and it will take you, it's a separate website, which is moneyvibemethod.com. But you can just do a Google search or a Yahoo search or a DuckDuckGo search. Use your search engine and search 30-day Money Vibe Challenge.
Awesome. Okay. So thank you so much for being here with us, Jackie. We'll have to have you on again. Feels like there's 1,000 more things to talk about.
Absolutely. Let's go.
Yeah, Bill and I will be with you guys all again next week. It's Bill McKenna and Liz Larson. We are the Cogno Movement team with New Life Perspectives Radio. See you all again real soon. Bye. Thanks for being here with us on the New Life Perspective Radio Show. For more information or to find out more about the work that Bill and I do, please visit us at cognomovement.com or email us at info@cognomovement.com. See you again soon.